Hello Richard, again, we've just finished our live streaming questions.
Yes, we have.
Now we have another 50 for you to rush through if you can.
Okay.
Still in Richard's house. Welcome to Richard's house, everybody.
Hi.
Question number 1. What is the best memory you have of Latin America? Asks Dr. 46.
Wow. Maybe the first time we went to Buenos Aires, we just went for a massive walk around the city and went to the huge cemetery what's it called? For some reason my brain is telling me it's like the Ricoletta or something, but that might just be a type of pasta. But there's a huge cemetery there that's absolutely amazing and mind-blowing, and it's full of cats and full of amazing graves, and I think Eva Peron is buried there, and just tons of amazing statues, and it's like a museum to death or something, and it's completely amazing. So yeah, that was brilliant, and it's such a wonderful place. But I don't know, I just love being there, being on a rooftop in Sao Paulo, a rooftop bar, and just looking around and seeing the skyscrapers just all the way around you. It's such a huge city, it's mind-blowingly massive, and that was pretty cool as well.
Lots of happy memories in that.
Yes.
Question 2 from Boston Keane fan. Why did you become a vegetarian and how long have you been one?
I became a vegetarian. My sister became a vegetarian. She's a bit older than me, and I guess that got me thinking about it, and then I guess I just didn't want... I've always loved animals, and I guess I just realised where meat came from. And I was about 13, so I've been veggie for 22 years. Wow. Yeah, that's a while, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Next question is from Luciana, Brazil, who asks, if you could choose to play for one night in any other band, which band would it be?
Oh, that's a good question. That's an almost impossible question. I think it would probably be quite fun to be in the Beatles for a night. And I know some of the songs. Yeah, or... I don't know, I went to watch Blur when we played at a few shows festivals where they were playing as well, and I managed to get on stage to watch the end of one of their shows, and growing up, and listening to their music and going to see them play live. I think I went to see them in like 97, I think it was, at Wembley Arena. I would have loved to have been playing the drums in that gig, and Dave Roundtree's an absolutely amazing drummer, definitely one of the huge, driving forces in me loving the drums and playing the drums. I used to play along to Blur records all the time at home, just put them on the headphones and play the whole record from start to finish, and so yeah, that would be pretty cool as well.
Next question is from Nicole in the USA. Asks, what kind of camera do you have?
I have a Nikon F6 film camera, and then for the website stuff I use a digital camera, so I can do it all very quickly from my laptop, which is a D700. And I have a little Hasselblad medium format and a Polaroid pinhole camera and all kinds of things. And I have a little dark room up at my little farmhouse, and so I get to print and develop stuff. I made Tim a print of the Schwarzer Cafe logo for his birthday this year, which was pretty cool. So that was, it's really fun being able to print photos.
Next question is an interesting one from Blue Gina, who says she knows you're vehemently against the death penalty, and
yes,
in the case of even a shadow of a doubt, she agrees, and she thinks the time people are held on death row is inexcusable, but the question she asks is, in beyond doubt questions, what would your alternative be, given the high rate of reoffending and the argument that rehabilitation and incarceration just don't work for some people? So what if somebody has clearly done something terribly bad, what would someone like yourself, who doesn't advocate the death penalty, suggest instead?
Well, I think there are some cases where people should just stay in prison till they die. Everyone dies. science hasn't cured that one yet. So yeah, when people, terrible people do terrible things and don't in any way regret doing it or whatever, there is the possibility of staying in prison for people's whole lives, and it's cheaper than executing them, which means that states like California, which are bankrupt, get to spend more money on education rather than, basically pointlessly ending someone's life early. They're going to die eventually. It's a lot cheaper to just keep people in prison. So I think when the parole hearing comes up, I don't believe in life without parole. I think there should always be the hope that people could, if they, definitely are improved as people and definitely regret what they did, and that they should be allowed to have a second chance if they're rehabilitated. Because I think a lot of people that do bad things after a long time realise that they've done bad things and want to almost make up for it. And I've met people for whom that's the case. But yeah, if people are unrepentant and, unapologetic, then they can stay in prison for their whole lives, and it's cheaper than the death penalty, and why waste your money on that as well? I just don't think. I think killing people is reducing yourself to the level of the bad people.
Next question is from Bevans, who says that Keane have never played a gig in New Zealand, and there are loads of Keane fans who would love to see you play.
Yes, and it's something that we want to do, and we kind of, I'm not quite sure why it hasn't happened, why we haven't been there, because we've been quite close by. I know Tom's been there a couple of times just himself, so maybe you'll catch him doing karaoke one night, but I would love to go there and play some shows, and also I'd love to be able to hang out for a few weeks afterwards and see the country, because my mum and dad went there and said it was absolutely mind-blowing. So
is it sometimes sort of economics, it just doesn't, because it's that bit further away than Australia, it just doesn't sort of work out?
I think it's normally that we don't like to go away for too long in one stretch, and so if you go to Australia you can just kind of do quite a few cities in one hit, and then you tend to go to Japan as well. I think we need to just do an Australia and New Zealand trip, or just bite the bullet and stay away from home for a little bit longer, but it's not something we like to do. We tend to sort of want to get home after about 3 or 4 weeks.
Bedshaped32 asks, which Keane song is the hardest to drum live?
That's quite a good question. Sometimes it just depends on how much you can hear and what the room's like. If it's a really big echoey room, sometimes you get sort of reflected sound which sort of puts you off, and if you're in a venue which has got a big flat end wall and you're in the crowd, you should turn around sometimes, or maybe you notice on the way to the bar you'll hear music sort of bouncing back at you. So that just depends on what the room is, but Atlantic's quite hard to play really in a really sort of grooving way, because it's quite a strange beat, but also because it's quite slow, and Tim's playing quite an intricate piano part, so to get it all to work together is, when it does work, it's really great fun. Perfect symmetry is quite difficult because of the backing vocals as well, but again, when it works and grooves, it's really good. But yeah, I don't know. The newer ones it always takes a little while for newer songs to settle in, and once they're sort of clicked, it's you get nights where you barely think about what you're doing, and that's probably the best kind of gig.
Linear Ramp saw on YouTube you singing Somewhere Only We Know at the sound check during the Forest tour. They'd like to know if you enjoyed that, and will you ever do it again?
No and no. It was terrifying.
Especially, did you know the fans were watching? Was it apparent that...
It became apparent as we were doing it that there were people watching. Yeah, I mean, we knew people were there, but I didn't realise quite how well they could hear it. I forgot the words, and no, it's absolutely terrifying. I have actually learned to play it on the bass though, so Jesse and I might switch around and do that at some point.
Stoke Jace says, we know you're a fine drummer, but they'd like to know, have you ever played drums on a computer game, Rock Band, Guitar Hero, that kind of thing? Have you ever done the computer drumming?
I've never done the computer drumming. I've done the guitar playing, but I've never done the drumming. I've never been around to anyone's house who's got the drum thing, so...
It's quite a big, it's a big outlay getting the actual drum.
Is it?
Well, yeah, because your guitar you get, but the drums are like loads of them, and it's a bit complicated.
Right. If I ever get the chance, I'll have a go.
Yeah, I reckon you'd be good.
I don't know.
Because at least it does replicate it, doesn't it? Because the guitar is nothing like really playing the guitar.
Yeah,
you're
I guess.
keeping the rhythm, but with drumming you'll be...
Well, I don't know. There's a great Killers video in Japan where they're playing sort of where Ronnie's playing the drums in an arcade, and it does look like fun. So yeah.
Jane McCabe says she thinks she saw you walk right past her at the Sherwood Forest gig in the summer, about half an hour before you do on stage, and she'd like to know, do you often wander out into the crowd before shows? Would that have been you, and do you do that often?
Yes, it probably was. I quite often go out if I've got friends there, go and say hello, and also to watch the... I would have been watching the Helio sequence. In fact, I would have, half an hour before we went on, the Helio sequence would have just finished, so I'd probably just watched their set from the sound desk, which is probably... It's where I always try and watch gigs from. I always think, if I'm next to the sound man, then it's probably the sound's going to be quite good there.
You would certainly hope so. I've read somewhere, says Cami G73, that you're colourblind. Maybe it's hard to explain, but how do you see the world, and how does this affect your photography?
Well, yes, I am. I'm red-green colourblind. How does it affect the way I see the world? Well, I don't know, because I've never been able to borrow anyone else's eyes. I would love to do that and see how different it is. A teacher at school noticed I was colourblind when I was very young because I drew a tree with brown leaves and green branches, and that's where they sort of thought, hang on a minute, this guy's weird. And I guess, how does it affect my photography? It means that I don't do much sort of retouching Photoshoppy stuff because I don't really trust what I'm seeing, and I really love using film because I really trust the colours in film much more than I trust them in digital cameras.
Interesting. Daniela H says there are a lot of people that are being condemned unjustly to death, like Troy Davis. What makes you support him specifically?
I guess, firstly, I just heard about Troy's case on Democracy Now!, which is an amazing news show that I try and listen to whenever I can. And I don't know what it was that just made me sort of pick up the phone and get involved, but sometimes I guess you just hear about something, whatever it is that you're passionate about, that just makes you, sort of something inside you snaps and you just decide you're going to start doing something. But also the fact that there's such huge question marks over his conviction, so many different areas of doubt, and I think sometimes with an issue as huge as the death penalty, you need to kind of strip it back to certain examples of where things have gone wrong, and that show people that there's no need to risk executing innocent people. There's a guy called Cameron Todd Willingham who was executed in Texas, and if you look into his case, it's just horrific. And this guy basically was convicted of arson, which a load of experts subsequently decided was almost certainly an accident. And the guy was executed, and he wouldn't take a plea bargain, he wouldn't plead guilty to escape being executed. And he is now dead. And now the people in Texas, the experts, think that it was an accident, and he's dead. So there's nothing you can do about it. And this was recently, this was only a few years ago. And I think Troy's case is one where that could happen again. And so, firstly, we're trying to stop it from happening, and secondly, using it as a way of showing that this still happens and it shouldn't. And so I hope, and I'm very grateful for all the support that Keane fans have given, and I know Troy's had a lot of letters from Keane fans, and I've had messages from his family saying, please say thank you. So he gets them, he reads them, he loves them, and I'm sure he replies to some of them, so thank you.
Next question is from Keane Shadow, who would like to know, will Mount Desolation remain as just a side project? Could this be the end of Keane?
Is it the end of Keane? Oh God! No, of course it's not the end of Keane. In fact, Tim and Jesse seem to be even more excited about the next Keane record than they do about all the Mount Desolation stuff, which is really nice. But I'm a huge Mount Desolation supporter. I contributed photos to the artwork of them in the studio, and which I'm really excited about, and it looks great. And no, they're fantastic, and I wonder if there'll be a second Mount Desolation album after the next Keane one. Tim writes tons of songs, Jesse writes tons of songs. They're both incredibly creative people, and it's great that they have another way of using that, and they're great live as well. It's a great band. So I've been to see them a couple of times, and I think if you get the chance, if you're in the States, you should go and check them out, and Canada, because they're coming your way.
Absolutely. Next question from Brenda Bass from Ecuador. What do you eat when you go climbing?
What do I eat when I go climbing? I don't really eat much because I get a stitch, but I quite often have a cup of tea, a sort of break halfway.
Okay. What are you doing, flat tea?
Or if I'm outdoors, I'll take in fact, herbal tea is really good if it's really cold. In winter, take a flask of like peppermint tea or something, because it keeps you warm and it's got something to warm your hands up on.
Good thinking. Watson50 would like to know, what was the first thing you bought as a real treat for yourself when Hopes and Fears did so well?
Drums. Predictably enough, I went straight out and bought myself an amazing drum kit, and then subsequently got given some more, which was brilliant. So I just have just drums.
Fair enough. Elizabeth would like to know, do you like cooking, and if so, do you have a speciality?
I was talking about this last night. I'm not a huge cook. I don't really have a speciality, and if I'm on my own, I tend to eat like a student. I'll just have like a whole quiche and a whole tin of beans and like some pickled onions or something, like totally rubbish. I'm just I'm lazy, and but I make quite a good salad, and that including a properly homemade salad dressing out of Delia Smith's book. So that's all sort of mustard and garlic and white wine vinegar and stuff, but it's really tasty.
Okay. Simona from Texas and Italy, she's from two places, would like to know, what's the first thing you do when you get home after a long tour?
That's a good question. I'm normally knackered and jet lagged because a lot of the tours are elsewhere, and I don't sleep very well on planes, so that whole following day is a real battle to stay awake and get back into the time zone. The one thing I don't do is unpack my suitcase, and quite often, like 2 weeks later, it'll still be in my bedroom on the floor, unpacked, not still packed and unpacked, and I'm a bit lazy with all that, but I don't know. I think I normally get my computer out and start making sure I've backed up all my photos from the tour, because a lot of the digital ones, you need to make backups.
Victoria asks, why did you start playing the drums, and at what age did you start playing?
I didn't start playing the drums till quite late, but I think, I was like 17, I think, which is really late. I love meeting kids who play the drums, because if you start playing the drums young, it can be quite amazing. Oh, there's the Builders. If you follow me on Twitter, they've been doing this for about 3 months. It's getting annoying. Anyway, what was the question? Something about
when did you start?
When did I start, and
why did you get interested?
I don't know. I'd always listened out to the drums. I don't know why. There's something about the drums I always found captivating. So when I was first into music, whether it was, in fact, weirdly enough, I was in the first band I truly got into was the Pet Shop Boys, and they, a lot of their drums are programmed. They're not, some of the, quite often it's not a real drummer, but at the same time, I really like that sort of pop drum thing. So I guess, I don't know, it always interested me, and I always listened out to it.
Bricas94 would like to know, do you ever give stuff names? Your drumsticks or your drums or anything you have, do you give them names? Your car?
Not really, no. I'm not a huge naming person. when I was a very small, and if I got given like a teddy bear or whatever, it would just be called Bear.
Fair enough.
Very unimaginative.
That's absolutely fine. Mac O asks if you've ever been to Africa and do you like African music? It's obviously amazing the percussion in African music. Is that something you're interested in?
I have. I've been to South Africa. I've been to Cape Town. And am I interested in music? Well, actually, Tim got me quite into. There's a few different people that. Oh God, I'm going to say this wrong. Tinaruan.
Yeah.
Tinaruan. Yeah. And which is. Yeah, I mean the rhythms are completely mind blowing, and so yeah, it is definitely something that I'm interested in. But I don't think I have the skills to recreate a lot of it. I guess a lot of that comes from listening to Graceland, which was one of the sort of big early records that I really really loved as a teenager.
All good. Guitar Keane really likes your drum patterns, thinks they're wonderful, and asks how do you contribute to the songwriting and music making process? How does it work? Tim comes in with a song, what do you do?
Well, Tim will come in with a song. Sometimes it'll just be him at a piano with hardly any words and a bit of a melody. Sometimes he'll have made a whole demo of a song which will include drum patterns and even fills and bass parts and all kinds, guitar solos and things. It really can go from one end of the spectrum to others, as I guess some of you will know from listening to demos that we've released in the past. We all then basically have an equal say in whether we like the lyrics or the melody, or whether some sections are better than others, and Tim will sometimes rewrite a chorus or rewrite a middle eight, and so we all sort of chip in our opinions on that. And also with the structure, we all have different ideas, and even up to the mixing point. I mean, I'm not very good at Logic, but I can make radio edits. I can try snipping out sections and putting songs back together, which again is quite a difficult thing to do. But we all sort of chuck in ideas at that point as well. So once it's within the band, it's basically the more ideas we have, the better. So everyone contributes. All four of us contribute fully in the studio with whatever we can think of.
Speculous knows that you enjoy watching US TV show series while on tour.
Yes.
And asks what your favourites are.
My favourite US TV shows, Breaking Bad, I think's amazing. I really enjoyed the first series of Nurse Jackie. It's nice to see Edie Falco getting recognised for that. She's amazing. I've watched The Sopranos, which is probably still the greatest TV show of all time. I think I learnt more about American politics through watching The West Wing than I did through reading newspapers. What else? House, obviously. We were huge Fry and Laurie fans, still are. And some of the jokes that are going around Keane have been going around Keane since Fry and Laurie first aired. And they're basically just the same jokes that they made. And Blackadder and things like that. So House, I absolutely love. That'll do. That's a start. 6 Feet Under, I watched that from start to finish. I thought that was great. And Dexter. Speaking of which, of Michael C. Hall, is that the actor's name? I think. Saw him in 6 Feet Under, and then into Dexter, which I think is just amazing.
Next one is from Gmar, which I sort of assume to be grandma, and yet the question isn't very grandma-ish.
Right.
Hello, Richard. Just wondering, boxers or briefs?
Boxers.
Fine. There you go, grandma. No.
Yeah, that's not a hugely grandma-y question.
Next question is from Alahita. Every time I see your great photo blogs on KeaneMusic.com, I wonder what happened with your book.
Yes, the book. I didn't get it done in time, and the trouble is every time you release an album, you come out with a load of new photos and you all look a bit different, and so all the photos for the book look really out of date. So eventually I think I will try and do a bit more of a sort of retrospective book over a while, over a few album cycles. But also a friend of mine is setting up a magazine that I might contribute a few photos to, and also I just really like putting them on the blog. So we'll see, but it is something I would still like to do, and with Rob especially. And so one day I just need to get round to doing it.
Enough. Keane Star would like to know, or Helen from Mexico, she's also known, what do you feel when you're on stage?
God, what do we feel? Well, it depends how the gig's going, because some nights you just have technical stuff going on that you're just trying to hear what's going on. Other nights, you know, there are some nights where I'll not have any issues at all, and it'll just be really fun from start to finish. So, and it depends on the crowd. It really, you know, the way a crowd reacts really does affect how much we enjoy a gig. And so if you see people having fun, it's, I don't know, it really sort of motivates you to give even more. But so most nights it's, I don't know, it's sort of slightly surreal, wondering how we got there. And yeah, just I really enjoy playing shows.
But it's still fun even after all this time.
It is still fun, although it can be quite terrifying as well. When you get that, sometimes you sort of realise that there are thousands of people out there and everything you do is being amplified massively, and it can at that point be quite terrifying.
Ellen from Seattle would like to know, what would be your perfect day? If you could do anything for a day, what would you do?
Oh, blimey. I think I'd have probably a sort of nice, I don't know, boiled egg breakfast, soft-boiled eggs and a nice coffee, and then I'd probably go to the studio and play some music and, you know, work on some songs, and then have, I don't know, probably have a bit of a climb in the afternoon, and then have, you know, see my, you know, my girlfriend and my friends and family, and I don't know, yeah, I don't know, I like going to the cinema, that kind of stuff, go to gigs, yeah, I don't know, comedy shows. I went to see Doug Stanhope recently. It was absolutely brilliant. In fact, it was on my birthday, and yeah, that was great. So maybe go and see him. He's very dark, but very, very funny.
Simple question from Donald Duck, also known as Attic. Canon or Nikon?
Nikon. Or Nikon.
Okay.
As Paul Simon says.
Jess, good question from Jessica. If you had to live in any US city, which US city would you live in?
There's a few.
You've been to a lot, so
we have. There's a few. I don't think I could live anywhere that gets really too hot. So I think that's Dallas and Houston out, and, you know, Phoenix and places like that. I love New York. I go there a lot. I've got a lot of friends who live there. I love Portland, Oregon, and Portland, Maine. Weirdly. They're both really great, and Seattle as well. So I like the sort of Pacific Northwest, although the constant threat of earthquakes sort of scares me slightly. Okay. So I think it would probably be New York.
Karen from New York, there's a link,
Hey.
asks, as a Java junkie, it's always nice to see coffee featured in your photo blog or tweets. How do you take your coffee?
I like flat whites. That's sort of, you know, a double shot and a small amount of milk. So yeah, in London there's a real, London's sort of catching up with the whole coffee culture. There's an amazing roastery called Square Mile, and they provide, you know, beans to a lot of places around here, and it's really, there are a lot of really great places. So in fact, Mr. KeaneMusic.com and I are going to one after this.
Sugar?
No sugar, thank you.
Next question is from Keane, who asks, do you still keep in touch with your childhood friend Dominic Scott?
Actually, we saw Dom recently, well, actually it was probably a while back now, at Brendan Benson's show, which was nice. Just happened to both be there. So yeah, we do, I think Tim's in touch with him a lot more than I am, but yeah, we do still see Dom, and he has a few musical endeavours on the go, which I think you should Google and check out.
Next question from Mathus. Have you ever thought about doing a side project like Tim and Jesse did? Have you ever thought about playing drums for anyone else or anything?
I have played the drums in the Mets, Jesse's band, and that was a lot of fun. And I have actually been asked to do something that I'm not sure if it's actually going to happen yet, so I'm not going to say what it is in the next few weeks. But I just enjoy playing the drums, so I'll quite happily, sit in for someone if I'm asked. So yeah, it's a fun thing to do.
Stephanie asks, what's the strangest thing you've ever witnessed while performing? Like somebody running on stage, or I don't know, I suppose when you're at festivals you can see quite a lot going on in the background.
Yeah, what have I seen? When we did the Oxygen Festival a few years ago, someone had they'd found a huge piece of cardboard, and they'd obviously found some paint, and they had painted "Shut Up, Keane" on it, and there was this, and it was one of those festival sites where there's a sort of walkway halfway back that sort of curved around in front of the stage, and this person just held up this huge sign and just walked from left to right, and then sort of disappeared slightly weirdly, and afterwards one of the security guards sort of came up and gave us this sign and was like, yeah, and I was like, what did they do to the guy? I was looking at him for bloodstains or something. But I just thought, if you're going to inspire that creativity in someone, even if it's in a sort of negative way, then that's pretty cool. So I didn't mind that at all. It was quite, and it was so big that I could see it, and I saw him quite early, and I just saw this thing kind of go like that over the course of about 2 or 3 minutes. It was hilarious.
That's amazing. Next question from Stefan. Simple question: what do you think of Mount Desolation?
What do I think of them? I love it. I think it's great. I've got a copy of the record. I already showed it in the live questions. But yeah, I've been listening to it for months because luckily they gave me the files before it was mixed and everything.
Do you have a favourite Mount Desolation song?
I think Annie Ford is brilliant and sort of really sort of heartbreaking, and the State of Our Affairs is amazing. Bridal Gown is just utterly heartbreaking. I love it, honestly. There are some really great songs on there, and they had a lot of fun making it. And like I said in those questions earlier, I almost got to be on it, but for a car crash, I would have been on that record. Shit.
Sorry. Jazz from Argentina says that if she's not wrong, or if he's not wrong, I'm not sure, you were a teacher once.
Yes.
Correct? They'd like to know what you were like in front of class.
Oh, I was rubbish. Oh my god, I was terrible. I always liked the kids who misbehaved because they always really made me laugh. It was very difficult trying to keep a straight face. I only ever did supply teaching, to be honest, and I was rubbish at it, but it's a really hard job, and I wouldn't want to do it again for all the tea in China.
Irvine in California, where is the best espresso you've ever tasted?
Blimey. There's a few places. Stumptown are amazing. There's a Stumptown in New York, and there's one in Portland. I'd say it was probably the coffee at Stumptown in Portland, Oregon, that really first made me think, wow, this is amazing. This is way better than that stuff you get everywhere else, and that's what kind of got me into it. So yeah, probably Stumptown.
Lindsay in Michigan would like to say, what's the one personal item you cannot go on tour without? Drumsticks.
Well, drumsticks someone else tends to look after. I think I would really miss my camera now if I didn't have just a camera. It doesn't have to be a fancy one, just any old camera, just to record what we're up to. It's a really great way of helping you remember all the things, the details of the places you go.
Reziva would like to know if there's a country or city that you've never been to that you'd really like to go to.
Oh, there's loads. I mean, I've been to Lima Airport, but I haven't been actually out of the airport. So I'd love to go to Peru, and I'd love to go to Bolivia.
There's a lot of demand for
Ecuador,
a Keane gig in Peru, Bolivia, Ecuador.
Yeah, I mean, I really would love to spend a lot more time in South America. I'd love to go to Malaysia and, you know, back to Singapore, and really tour that part of the world back to Bangkok, and, you know, get a chance to actually spend some time in Thailand. I've got a friend who works for Reprieve, an anti-death penalty charity, who's now based in Thailand, and I would love to go and visit and get a chance to see what is clearly an amazing country and an amazing part of the world. So yeah, Indonesia and Vietnam and Cambodia, and, you know, I'd love to be able to spend some time over there.
Angelitaf would like to know, if you got the chance to practice what you learned with geography, how would you do that? What field would you focus on? Is it?
I think I'm very pro science, and I'm very sort of pro doing something about climate change, and so I think if that's probably a reflection of the fact that I used to, you know, that I studied geography, because that's very sort of science based, and so I don't know, maybe something to do with that. But to be honest, I think if I wasn't doing Keane stuff, I think I'd probably try and do more stuff where in the world of human rights, because that's probably my number one thing that I think sometimes you can spread yourself too thin. So I guess that's why I'm sort of focusing on death penalty stuff at the moment.
Leonella from Argentina would like to know how your kittens are.
They're cats now. They're pretty big. They're fully grown. They're over 2. So Archie's just over there, but I don't know where Pitney is. They've got some cat bowls with their names on from some people in South America, which they now eat out of. So that's pretty cool.
Amazing.
But yeah, Archie's just asleep over there.
That's nice. Sue Red would like to know if you sleep okay with all that coffee you drink.
I don't actually drink that much coffee. I tend to have 1 or 2 cups in a day, and yeah, I sleep just fine, thank you.
Nice that they're concerned. Laura would like to know if you remember what your first camera was and when you got it.
Yeah, my first camera. Well, I was at school, so I used to use whatever they had, and then my mum and dad and my grandparents all clubbed together, and they got me a Pentax P30 when I was about, a teenager, and so I used to take lots of black and white photos of that I could then develop at school.
Annette says that in the Strangers DVD, Tim inadvertently lets slip that he's written a song about you and the end of a relationship with your then girlfriend, which is put it behind you now. Is that
Yes.
right? Annette would like to know, do you still talk to Tim about relationships? Because she'd be concerned that anything you said to him would be put in a song. Is that something you have to be?
Do we self-edit? You have to watch yourself.
Yeah, he doesn't write about everything. So.
He does write about everything, but he would also, I'm sure he's written songs about things. In fact, I know for a fact he's written songs about things that we haven't discussed in interviews. So there's always that option, and also, I'm sure if I was concerned about something, then he would edit the song accordingly. But you know what? It's one of the hardest things he does, I think, is having that sort of that honesty, really laying yourself open in a song is a very brave and difficult thing to do, and I think a lot of artists hold something back, and I think you can tell, and a lot of lyricists do that, and I think the most powerful lyrics are the ones where nothing's been held back. So it's a very brave thing that he does, but yeah, no. So the answer is no.
Joanne says you mentioned on Twitter recently that you have a soundproof drum room complete with huge spiders.
Yes.
She'd like to know when you first started playing, where did you practice, and what was the reaction of your parents?
Well, yeah, my parents were very supportive, and still are. I remember my dad. There's a music shop in Eastbourne called Bonner's. And I remember saving up, and I'd had drum lessons at school, and my dad drove me over to Bonner's, and we got when we bought my first drum kit, which was a green Pearl Export drum kit, and so I just remember coming home with that and setting it up in my room, and I had my bedroom door shut, and then there was another door between sort of that bit of the house and kind of the living room, and I just used to shut those doors and play for about an hour a day when I got home from school, and my neighbours said you can play as much as you want as long as you don't play beyond 8 p.m. So they had to be, because when you play the drums, your neighbours need to be supportive as well.
Really.
So I was very lucky to have that. So if you've got kids near you who are practicing instruments, then, lay down some ground rules, but it's good to be supportive.
Lindell would like to know if you climb exclusively on climbing walls or whether you actually climb mountains too. Actually, it's Natalie from Switzerland.
Natalie from Switzerland is probably surrounded by mountains. I've never done sort of proper mountain climbing, but I've done outdoor rock climbing, but more sort of, single pitch stuff rather than multiple pitch going up, huge mountains. So, but yeah, I climb outdoors as well.
Is it an ambition to climb more and bigger things? I've
never wanted to climb huge mountains. I think it's just, I respect people that do it, but I think it's bonkers.
Liz H noticed that you've talked before about worrying about your carbon footprint, and would like to know if you've planted any trees on your farm yet to help combat it. Or have you...
Yeah, I have actually, and also sort of fenced off areas so they're not grazed, so they get to go a bit more wild, and put up a lot of bird boxes, and generally tried to encourage. There's quite a few areas that we've left to sort of go wild in a way, and the wildlife up there is amazing. So it's the carbon footprint thing. I wish we didn't have to fly so much, but there just isn't another way to get to Australia or Japan or South America, and I think if we didn't go there, then I think more people would do the same journey but in the opposite direction. So it's difficult, and we genuinely do try and minimise it, but I don't know what the solution is. It's difficult. I guess the solution is that everyone has to cut down as much as they can, and probably needs a government to do something about it. That would be my opinion.
Magic from Colombia would like to know, do you have a favourite picture or pictures that you've taken? The one that sprung to mind when I saw the question was definitely your World Cup final one. I love that picture.
Oh, yeah, the sort of silhouette-y thing. Yeah, there was one I took in Buenos Aires of Tom on stage that I sort of zoomed in on, and he's wearing a gold jacket, and you see the crowd, but it's all kind of slightly blurry, and he's going like that, and you can see the Argentine flag hanging off the mic stand, and it was a bit of a fluke, to be honest, but I made a big print of it for him and gave him that, so that's probably in a cupboard somewhere in his house. CFC from Ireland asks why Keane rarely, if ever, plays She Has No Time. Well, we used to. It's quite long. It's a slow one. I don't know why we haven't played it for a while. That's a good question. I don't know. Set lists are difficult. You have to balance sort of the singles and the songs that everyone's going to know, and hopefully keep it quite up tempo, and then you have a few slots where you can put in slower songs, but it's a good question. I don't know.
I guess you've got a lot of songs now, haven't you? You can't...
We do. There was someone was selling a bootleg CD outside one of the shows we did somewhere in the world, and Kyle, guy that does our merch, bought one for us, and it had like 50 or 60 songs on it. It was pretty amazing. You forget how many songs there are out there. So, but yeah, putting together a set list, I think you've got to think about the people who don't know that many songs as much as the people who do.
Gina83 would like to know your opinion on the anti-immigrant law in Arizona, which, if you could explain that for those who don't know about the anti-immigrant law in Arizona, assuming you do know about the...
Well, there's a guy in Arizona, I think he's called Sheriff Joe Arpaio, and he's sort of been a crazy sort of anti-immigrant sheriff, and then seems to have caught on somewhere, and there's basically a law which seems to... I'm not sure if it was deemed unconstitutional, but anyway, it basically allows or does it even instruct police to stop people who they suspect of not having documentation? I don't know. I think obviously it's based on profiling, and profiling is shown not to be effective as a way of, enforcing laws. And America's a country that is born out of immigration, and I think sometimes that gets forgotten, and I think it gets more out of immigration than it loses from it, and it's just one of those issues that, I'm not an American, and so, but I've been asked about it, so yeah, my opinion is that immigration's been a good thing for America, not a bad thing, and should still be embraced.
Sam in the UK asks, if you were to go on the British quiz show Mastermind, what would your specialist subject be?
Oh my god. I have no idea.
You do alright on drums. Somebody did the songs of Manic Street Preachers the other week. You could do the songs of Keane.
Actually, you know what? I bet there are people who would be better than me about the songs of Keane. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, maybe Britpop drummers or something like that.
That would be good. Fox in the Snow, or also known as Caroline in Chepstow, says, from your tweets, it's obvious you're a Formula 1 fan. Who do you think is going to win the Drivers' Championship this year?
It doesn't look like, just from the way the championship's going, I would love Jenson or Lewis to have won it, but it looks like it's just slipping away from them. I would love Mark Webber to win it. I think he's so refreshingly straight talking, and he just seems like a really good bloke, and I would love him to do well. I think he's a brilliant driver as well, and I don't know, I've gone off Sebastian Vettel a bit. It's that pointy number one thing he does. It really drives me nuts. So stop doing it. But yeah, I think Mark Webber's, I think he's leading the championship, and yeah, I think he's got a good, I hope he wins.
Next question is from the final question, in fact, question number 50, from Valentine in Mexico. We've left it for a big one. When will Keane release their next album?
Well, we are going to take... I think Tim's planning to write some more songs. He's written a load of songs, and some of them are absolutely brilliant, and we've played a couple of them live. But he's going to spend a bit of November, I think most of November, continuing songwriting and sending demos out, and we're all listening to those demos like crazy. And then in December we're going to get together and do a bit of playing through some things and seeing what we like and what's sounding good. And then in January I think we're going to start working probably down at Tim's studio on a bit of pre-production, which is basically playing through songs until we think they're ready to record, and we'll get going. So next year sometime. But the trouble is, as soon as you put a date on it, people start putting that in diaries and plans, and then before you know it, you've got deadlines, and deadlines don't tend to help with albums. So we're just going to wait and see. We don't want to put it out till it's ready.
But it's definitely on its way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, people who came to some of the last shows last year will have heard a few new songs, so or a couple of new songs maybe. So yeah, with a bit of luck, some of those will make it onto the record.
Marvellous. Thank you very much.
Thank you.